There's this feeling lately, isn't there? A kind of unease, like the rule of law, the very thing holding it all together might be, well, hanging by a thread.
A definite tension.
Yeah. So we've got some source material here, mostly from a YouTube video transcript, looking at recent events, federal actions clashing with state responses.
Right.
And our mission today really is just to understand what's going on, what do these events mean, what are the pressures. We're not taking sides, just digging in.
Okay. So where does the transcript start us off?
It kicks off with Congress members visiting an ICE facility, Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
And almost right away, there are these allegations, assaults, on the members of Congress by ICE agents.
Oh, okay. That's a strong start. Raises questions immediately, right? About oversight, conduct.
Exactly. And then adding to this whole picture of, like, federal authority flexing.
Yeah.
Around the same time, the mayor of Newark reportedly arrested.
Okay, so a very charged situation there in Newark.
Definitely seems that way. And then, layered right on top, we get this statement from Stephen Miller.
Ah, yes. The habeas corpus point.
Yes. Raising the idea of maybe suspending habeas corpus. Now, just quickly for anyone listening, what is habeas corpus, fundamentally?
It's absolutely fundamental. It's your right, if you're detained, to have a court ask why, to review if your imprisonment is even legal.
A safeguard.
A core safeguard against just being locked up indefinitely without cause. It's ancient common law stuff, but it's right there in the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 9.
And it says it can only be suspended when?
Only, and I quote, when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Extremely specific, extremely high bar.
And that's where the history is so stark, right? When has it actually been suspended? It's incredibly rare.
Vanishingly rare. You're talking the Civil War, obviously a massive rebellion.
Right.
Parts of South Carolina during Reconstruction, specifically because of KKK violence threatening the state itself.
Yeah.
The Philippines, 1905, under U.S. rule at the time. And then Hawaii after Pearl Harbor.
So every single time it's war, invasion, or a breakdown threatening a nation's actual survival.
Precisely. An existential threat, which makes the discussion now, as highlighted in the source, feel, well, dramatically different from those contexts.
It really does. Suggesting it now implies a similar level of crisis, at least in the view of whoever's suggesting it. That's a heavy thing to invoke.
It absolutely is. It raises serious questions about, the perception of the current situation versus those historical precedents. What threat level are we actually talking about today?
Yeah. Okay, so moving on from that, the transcript then talks about a student, a TOS student, arrested by ICE.
Right, the Vermont case.
That's the one. And the details reported are pretty concerning. Agents apparently didn't ID themselves, no uniforms.
The source describes it almost like a kidnapping off the street. Very alarming language.
And then this student gets shipped all the way from Vermont down to Louisiana.
A huge distance. And that's where the judge steps in.
Tell us about the judge's response.
Well, this Vermont judge ordered the student released completely, no travel restrictions.
Okay. And the reasoning?
This is key. Apparently, the main evidence against her was just an opinion piece she wrote in a newspaper.
An opinion piece.
That seems to be what the source material indicates was the primary basis presented. And the judge basically said, look, her commitment to her studies is clear. Releasing her without restrictions is warranted.
So the judge effectively pushed back hard against the federal action there.
Exactly. You see the judicial check in action, saying, hang on, even in these situations, you need actual evidence, you need due process. You can't just bypass fundamental rights based on something like an op-ed.
It's a really clear example of that separation of powers the source seems to be highlighting. Okay, then we hear from one of the Democrats involved in that Newark ICE facility incident.
Yeah, the one who reported being assaulted. Their reaction, as presented, is very strong.
What did they say?
They called the events unacceptable. Said this isn't what the country stands for, basically. A real gut reaction, based on direct experience.
And a commitment to fight for their view of things.
Absolutely. Very clear about not backing down, fighting for the values they believe in.
Right. And just weaving back to New Jersey for a second, the acting AG, Alina Habba, she confirmed the Newark mayor's arrest.
Yes, the transcript mentions her announcement, which kind of underscores that friction we talked about between federal and local authorities.
Okay. But then the source makes this interesting point about how these events might be affecting people politically.
Yeah, this is fascinating. The idea that seeing or experiencing things like this firsthand,
Yeah.
it's way more motivating than just reading about it.
More powerful.
Much more. The transcript suggests it's actually emboldening Democrats in what it calls the pro-democracy movement. Like, it creates this shared sense of urgency. We need to do something.
You can see how that might happen, which kind of leads into this town hall moment, right? With New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Exactly. An attendee stands up, voices this concern. It feels very real. They basically say, hey, if I did something like what we're seeing, I'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, that feeling of different rules.
Right. And they ask her, what's the process? How do we move forward from here? It's a plea for action, for accountability.
And how does AG James respond? The source paints it as hopeful.
It does. She starts with reassurance. We're going to be okay because we're all in this together. A message of unity.
Okay.
But then she gets specific. She talks about preparing, actively getting ready for potential executive orders, looking hard at things like Project 2025, figuring out jurisdiction claims, who has standing to sue.
So not just talk, actual legal prep work.
Very much so. It sounds like a coordinated strategy among various states, anticipating potential federal actions and getting their legal ducks in a row to challenge them if needed.
That's significant, a kind of preemptive legal defense network.
Seems like it. And she has this rallying cry too, doesn't she?
Yeah, don't give in to fear. Stand up. Fight back. She really emphasizes trusting the rule of law, trusting the courts to uphold it.
Her closing lines in the transcript are incredibly strong, worth repeating. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Wow. That's powerful language. Shows how high the stakes feel to people like her.
Definitely conveys a sense of deep conviction and resistance.
And one last detail the transcript throws in. Chief Justice Roberts being sued by Stephen Miller.
Yeah, it mentions that and suggests, or at least raises the question of whether that lawsuit might somehow influence Roberts' future rulings involving Trump.
Just another tangle in the web, huh?
Adds another layer of political and legal complexity for sure. Interactions between all these different players and branches.
So if we zoom out, what we've seen from this source material is this real contrast.
Definitely. On one hand, you have these alleged examples of, federal overreach, actions pushing boundaries, even talk of suspending fundamental rights.
And on the other,
Pushback from judges, from state attorneys general, from members of Congress, from citizens. A reliance on the legal system, on the courts, to act as the ultimate safeguard.
So yeah, this deep dive, based on that transcript, it really highlighted some serious friction points. Alleged overreach, the whole habeas corpus discussion, which is frankly stunning, and then these organized responses bubbling up. It's clear there's a major debate happening about power, limits, and the law itself.
Which really brings us to the final question, the one for you listening. Thinking about everything we've unpacked, the specific incidents, the talk of suspending habeas corpus, the pushback from state AGs like Letitia James, the role of the courts, what do you see as the biggest challenges right now to these principles we've discussed? And maybe more importantly, what are the safeguards? Where do the protections lie? Consider the roles of all these different people and institutions in what's unfolding.